like there might be some desync. Yeah, look. So everybody's quitting out to the menu now.
Like they're off. Cool. So right off the bat here, Klaxi obviously and Stu are kind of a little bit ahead. We're seeing them jump into the menu right before this first level and actually getting rid of their sound effects, which is actually very important, and it saves about a little over a minute across the entire run because it disables the little Cortex and Uka Uka and the area boss cutscenes that happen between levels.
Yeah, so normally when you're going between levels, every once in a while the bosses will talk to you and they'll like, drop a diss track and tell you that like you're never gonna win. And for some reason, if you just disable sound effects completely, those just never play. And like Vanny said, it saves a little over a minute, so it does matter over the course of a run. One thing I note immediately is that Klaxi actually started with Orient Express instead of Under Pressure. So the reason that people usually start with Under Pressure is because there is a one cycle in this level. One cycling is it's the term we use for getting a gem and a relic in the same pass, which is not what the developers intended you to do. The relics for the time trials are supposed to be something you do on your own. The Under Pressure one saves a little bit of time just because it allows you to set up the any percent cycle for Under Pressure, which just saves a couple of seconds, and then it also stops you from having to go out of their way to get the crystal and then the boxes that are right below it. So because of that, people tend to prefer to start with Under Pressure, but Orient Express is a notoriously brutal level, so if you're not going for the one cycle, there's a valid argument to start with it, and I'm guessing that's what Klaxi's thought process is. I saw an early death from Hypnoshark there, which is a bit unfortunate, but it should not be too bad in the long run. Yeah, I can see Stu and Potty are both going for the one cycle, which is to be expected.
Not too bad of a one cycle either, especially with the cycle setup, so...
Yeah, this is one of those one cycles where when you're just starting out, it's really brutal, and I even think like as you get more experience with the game, it is still one of the more challenging ones, but it is one that is definitely just how hard you find it to be really just depends on how strong your underwater movement is. So it's one of those one cycles that just becomes easier the better you get at the game. It is a pretty terrifying one though to have early on in a race, because if you fail it, it is like a minute of time loss.
So we'll see it a little bit more, but if you pay attention to Klaxi right now, we're going to see him go for a cuddle skip. I'm not sure if he went for the first one. I wasn't paying attention, but
yeah,
there's a little animation with Coco, and we skip it. So
yeah, the one in Orient Express is a bit tight, but there's another level later on where it's a lot easier to do.
Yeah, there's two different variations for Orient. So that one was the easier version, which is nice.
So we see Stu is finishing up the one cycle and he gets a 108, which is a very solid time. I believe the gold relic time in Under Pressure is 117, and it's 117.90, and you do need to get gold relics for 105% because there is a final gem in the warp room next to Coco that only spawns if you have 30 gold relics. So if you get a sapphire, that's no good, and you have to go back and do the level again. But a gold or platinum is good.
Funny thing about that as well is there are some levels where technically if you get the platinum, you've lost time just because it means you've gotten boxes that you didn't need to get. So we'll see a couple of those later.
Yeah, there's like some levels where you can like very effortlessly get the platinum, but yeah, by and large, usually like you don't want to go out of your way to try and get it. Like you don't want to go out of your way for extra time crates because that's only saving time on the in-game timer, and if it's not saving time on the real time, then you probably don't want to go for it. And most platforming levels, you can get a gold relic pretty easily, even without time crates.
Bit of a note on the Pura levels, the main levels on screen right now. They're going to be jumping a lot, and actually that's going to save a slight bit of time. Every time they jump, their speed doubles for exactly a frame, so you get a frame per jump pretty much. Coupled with a couple slowdowns that you need to do, just because you can't get all of the boxes, or sometimes some of the boxes won't break all the way if you're running at full speed, so it's a little bit of a frustrating level, as kind of Rico alluded to earlier.
Stu got the first cuddle skip with the gem, which was very nice there. Potty didn't. I don't know if Potty didn't go for it or if just messed it up, but he didn't get the cuddle skip. But yeah, in Orient Express, when you go too fast, some of these crate formations really do not like to break in their entirety. In particular, the 2x2 stack about halfway through the level. If you charge through that, you're basically leaving it up to chance as to whether or not you get all those crates.
Literally the game just deciding whether or not you're going to get them at that point. So
it is possible to one cycle Orient Express if you do miss a crate, but it is generally pretty risky, and it didn't come up for any of these races, but I feel like there's a good chance that if any of them had missed a crate, they might have just taken the death abuse.
Especially in a race setting.
Yeah, Orient Express one cycle is very brutal and only ever done as a backup plan. We have Klaxi going through Under Pressure. It looks like he is not doing the one cycle, which lines up with him opening with Orient Express.
Again, just pretty safe here, especially for a race.
Yeah, the Under Pressure one cycle is one where, like, from like personal experience, I'm pretty comfortable with it, but in a race or even like in a marathon setting, so like my ESA run, I chose not to do it just because it's so risky to mess up. It's just it's an early like 1 minute deficit if it goes wrong, and then if you do get it, it's like 15 seconds max. So in a race setting, I think it makes a lot of sense to not go for it.
Coming up here, Stu and Potty, it looks like following shortly, are going into the main crash levels with some actual non-vehicle action. So we get introduced to our main movement tech here, the NSJ, neutral slide jump. Basically, they're just going to slide on the ground, holding a direction, release that direction, and then jump, and their momentum is going to carry them pretty far, actually. Chain those together, and you've got your speedrun tech.
Yep, and right before Stu went into a commercial break, he got the triple mask, which is probably the biggest key difference between this game and Crash 2, is that triple mask is actually something you want to have as much as possible because it drastically increases your slide speed. So your neutral slide jump when you have triple mask is ridiculously fast. So basically most of the routing in this game comes down to how many triples can you get, and conveniently almost every time trial in this game has 2 or even 3 masks. Most of the platform ones have 3 masks in them. So time trials can also be used to replenish masks if you lose one too early. So that's part of why this route is so flexible, is that there's so many backup plans you can take if something goes wrong.
So the other two here we've got in jet ski levels. If the sound effects were on, you would hear a consistent humming, but instead we just get to jam out. These levels are notorious because of the wave cycles. It's not actually random how the waves go. It's based on the global cycle, and it can make the ramps kind of higher or lower depending on when you hit them. And as a result, some of the boxes become harder or easier to hit, and that can lose you a good bit of time.
I see a question in the chat asking why it's faster to one cycle level to get the gem and the relic at the same time. In the case of vehicle levels like Under Pressure, it's usually a case of to get the relic, you have to break a lot of the time crates anyway. So it just makes more sense for the first pass to just get just take shorter lines by breaking as few boxes as possible, and then on the second pass where you have to break most of the crates anyway, just get the gem at the same time. But for a lot of the platforming levels later on, it's going to be a case of you want to do the death route or like the colored gem route that has an alternate gem at the same time as the relic, which just saves time over what you would do in Crash 2, where you would get a gem and then death abuse and continue the main level.
And notably for the vehicle levels, almost all of them, if not all of them, are technically faster to get the gem and relic together, but some of them are just like so difficult it's not worth it. Making waves is kind of
making waves is one of them where you really don't want to, because like making waves is a very rare case of the gold relic being extremely tight, where if you miss like just a couple time crates, it can be just impossible to get.
Even if you're doing like not the one cycle, sometimes it can get a little hairy.
Yeah, for sure. Funny thing is that in the remake of this game, in the Insane trilogy, the making waves one cycle is actually commonplace in a part of the run because it's just that much more lenient.
One fun thing to kind of take note of when the runners are doing the triple mask form sections, you can kind of get a gauge for how good their movement is just based on when the mask form actually ends. So Potty ended up pretty much right at the end of the level between the two boxes when his ran out, so it's kind of a good benchmark.
It's hard to keep track of the runs because like you have Claxy and Stu are both in making waves right now, and then Hypno and Potty are both in Boneyard, and this is what we mean by the route and Crash 3 really diverging, is that neither route is really superior over the other. It's just like the preference of what they're going for, or just depending on how their route panned out with masks.
Yep, as long as you're taking masks where you need them and not taking masks where you don't need them, you're good. Notably, Boneyard, what Hypno just went out of and what Potty's currently doing. We're doing just one pass right here. Some of you may have seen it. There's a little bit of like a red gem outline, if you're familiar with the previous runs. When you get colored gems, they'll open up certain paths. So we need to come get the red gem and make our way back here. And we'll actually do a one cycle for the relic and the red gem path gem.
Yeah, Boneyard is one of the, I want to say, 2 levels that you cannot fully complete on first pass because of the colored gem requirement. The other is Tomb Time and Warp Room 2. So there will be a bit of cleanup between Warp Room 3 and Warp Room 4, where all the runners will come back and just finish off everything they're missing from the first Warp Room.
Yeah. Some people like to do every single relic in the first Warp Room, except for Boneyard, whereas some people can just kind of leave a couple of the other relics and do them when they come back, so...
Yeah, a common one that gets left behind is Toad Village because it's a very, very easy relic and one that you can use to replenish masks if you need it, but also if you don't need those masks, then you can just come back to it later when it's not really a concern. I think making waves normally gets done early on regardless, just because it is a pretty tight gold relic, so it's not something you want to mess up like halfway into the run.
Potty is going into the first boss. Once you collect all 5 crystals, it kind of forces you into the boss. Very simple, and in fact, we cheese it a little bit. He's going to stand in that corner, and all the lions coming out won't be able to get him.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, there's actually multiple blind spots where the lions can't hit you. It's just that left corner is by far the easiest one. You just stand there and do nothing, and they will never touch you.
Hilariously, the last jump for Tiny, the one where you hit him, for some reason he just doesn't have his hitbox, which is why we can literally just get stabbed and spin him. As well, if you frame perfectly skip the intro cutscene here, you won't get any music for Tiny, which I think is pretty free.
It's great on top of the lack of sound effects, because then you just have like a 1-minute section where just there's absolute silence on the stream unless the runner is talking.
And lucky for you, the reason why the 2 of us are here, so that one of us can do the commentary and the other one can do sound effects. So stay tuned for that. And notably, there was a power-up gotten. You'll see it here shortly on Hypno's stream. It is an enhanced body slam range. It's very lackluster. It's technically like helpful, but it's really not the biggest power-up in the world. That is one thing that is new in this game compared to the first 2. We're going to get some power-ups for each boss that we defeat.
Yeah, the funny thing is that the first instance where the body slam is required is actually after you get the super body slam, so the normal body slam just never shows up in the game.
Yep.
But yeah, the power-ups have varying degrees of usefulness. The body slam is definitely on the lower end. The fruit bazooka will also be on the lower end with some niche use very late in the game. But the double jump and especially the death tornado spin are huge parts of this run that are extremely useful. So we'll definitely be seeing a lot of them when they're received. And then the fun fact with the running shoes is that they're not used at all because they're the last thing you collect as you finish the run.
A little sad because that is a very fun power-up.
Yeah.
But Notably on Stewart's screen here, we'll see him finish up Boneyard, and it's actually kind of going to look like he missed the box gem. It's just something you can kind of do here. You fall and you still pick it up.
Yeah, for some reason, and this is like only happens in Boneyard, the gem kind of just like homes in on you. I don't know why. I think just the hitbox to grab it is just gigantic for some reason. But this is the only platforming level where that happens. In a lot of the vehicle levels, the gem hitbox is also very big, but it's not like a homing effect. Whereas like for Boneyard, it kind of just looks like it just you just grab it from nowhere. I also see a question in the chat. It is not faster to have the running shoes and doing the relics after Cortex because one, that would require watching the credits, which is several minutes, and also the neutral slide jump, unless you have profoundly good zigzag with the running shoes, is actually faster. So the running shoes are actually just pretty useless overall. There's a new game plus category for both this and any percent no item glitch that does start you with all 5 power-ups, and it's almost exactly the same run. So
Notably, I believe Potty's going to be leaving the first warp room now, and he saved Toad Village for last. It's a very easy time trial to take 2 masks out of, and there he goes. Warp 2 is kind of interesting. He's going into 6 right now. Again, mask routing. Level 7 is going to be the most important one to take 2 masks into, and you'll see kind of why when we get there.
Yeah, a very common question when people are first learning the routing for this game is if 7 is the most important triple to have, why do you not just start with it in this warp room? And the reason is that by doing G-Wiz first, you actually open up its time trial. So if you need a backup at any point, G-Wiz is actually the only level in this warp room where you can have a realistic backup, because every other level either doesn't give you masks or you have to use them in some way or you have to like save the level for a specific spot where you just cannot use that time trial as a backup. So G-Wiz is the only point where you really can. So you kind of just do it early just to have that as an option.
You can see Stewart and now Potty going to the bonus round. A lot of these bonus rounds are very interesting the way they've been solved, and just very satisfying to watch them see, high level pulled off.
Yeah, this one
is kind of one of them.
I think, yeah, Stu goes for a bit of a safer strat here. I'm not sure how Potty approaches this. We'll see in a moment. Okay, yeah, so Potty does the bounce on the exclamation crate. That is the optimal strat there. It's not nearly as bad as it looks, but it is a pretty bad one to mess up, so I can understand Stu going for his method, which is, again, probably is not really that much different, but it is definitely a lot safer.
Notably, one other thing about like the main movement here, we talked about NSJing. There's actually a blending of the NSJ as well as just a normal slide spin. You use the slide spin to kind of close smaller distances or set yourself up for like an NSJ over a gap of some sort. And mixed in there, we'll also be doing zigzagging, which if you're familiar with the other 2 games, it shouldn't come as a surprise. Your speed is slightly faster when you're holding a diagonal direction, so alternating between those, you'll get more speed.
Yeah, the biggest thing with NSJ is that it's only marginally the fastest movement tech, and there's definitely a lot of instances where it is not the correct choice. Generally in situations where you just don't have the space to get the full distance of the NSJ, because it's a pretty big commitment. So in those situations, or like if you're going downhill, you generally want to just slide spin, because that's a much shorter piece of movement and generally gets you about the same amount of distance, or the amount of speed, I should say.
And if you're... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Potty and Stu are both in Tomb Time right now. This is the one level where on the first pass you can only get the crystal. Both gems are out of reach on the first pass because there's crates in the left path when it branches, and the left path requires the purple gem, which is in Warp Room 3.
Laxi down here is doing not 07R as his splits would tell you, but he is doing the 07 first pass, and you can see right away he's got his triple mask form, and he's kind of flying on these hangrails, which is pretty much the entire reason why we want this, just because the hangrail movement is very slow.
Yeah.
So pick it up, and you're just kind of zooming. There's also another very satisfying bonus to watch. See how Claxy pulls it off.
I just noticed that all of Claxy's splits say 07R.
Yeah, part of that's Zachary Lawrence's fault, and part of that's my fault. One of them in there has like a missed space in there somewhere, so adds to the hilarity.
Was it a case of like renaming splits and you just renamed all of them to 07R? Or
Yeah, that was his original thing, and I'm like, well, wouldn't it be funnier if like we kind of like vary them slightly here and there as well? So like bracket space 7 and.
that was a series of unfortunate events for Claxy there. He missed one of the crates under the nitro, and if you watched Crash 2, it was probably explained that in the PS1 Crash games, nitro detonators do not actually destroy nitros, they delete them. So you have to actually break all crates next to nitros in order to get them. So he had to take a damage abuse there to hit the second crate, and then I think the damage abuse threw off his movement, and he got just a momentum cut doing a jump, and then he just fell to his death. So a bit unfortunate. The only real downside to that is that he's entering Midnight Run with no masks, which means on this first pass he won't be able to do the cuddle skip, because the cuddle skip in this level does require a damage abuse. But it's a pretty minor time loss, so it probably won't be too big of a deal.
Notably with that as well, you can see Potty is also in Midnight Run. He has one mask.
And now he's in a commercial break.
Very important. So coming in with two masks causes this game to sometimes just, for whatever reason, Midnight Run specifically, some of the boxes can not spawn or spawn under the map. So if you come in with two masks, you want to take damage immediately to get down to one.
Yeah, there's some weird things that happen with having double masks in this game, and we don't know why. But if you ever enter Midnight Run with two masks, it's very advised to just like damage use on the first enemy you can.
Usually the hanging ones that are the biggest offenders.
Actually wild right now. 3 of the runners are in different levels, and Potty's in a commercial break. So Stu took a damage on the nitros right as he was leaving G-Wiz. I don't think that, that's not gonna matter too much. He might have actually done that on purpose because his next level is Midnight Run, so it saves him damage on the enemy. Yeah. So that was probably actually, that was intentional, I would guess. So Hypno is actually entering Hog Ride right now, which is the first of 4 motorcycle levels. And this is one where it is actually optimal to do the one cycle, because the gold relic in Hog Ride is tight enough where you have to basically get every time crate anyway. So it's just better to hold this turbo that Hypno has right now and just carry it through the entire level, and then on the revisit just break every crate. And I think it saves about 5 seconds over just getting the gem on the first pass. So from what I'm reading in chat, Potty did get cuddle skip in the middle of his commercial break. So
we've got Stu coming up on it, and Claxy, I believe, goes for it as well. So
yeah, this is actually like the easier of the 2 cuddle skips to get. It's very up. Looks like he's not going for it.
It can be punishing if you screw it up.
Yeah, I will add the asterisk. It's easy. It's the easier of the 2, but if you don't know what you're doing, it is very punishing because you can just careen into the pit right below the end of the level and then die and then have to do it all over again. So
yep, Stu got it, and you can see even with the like curved path, he still made it in. Got the gem. Gem is like very conveniently placed. Nice.
Yeah, that one is thankfully extremely convenient or consistent. If you do the damage use properly and land on the flag correctly, because that's what they're doing there, is that they're using the enemy to land on the flagpoles on the right. and then that gives you enough air to land on the edge of the wall, and then it just slides you through the gem and into the portal. And we have Hypno in Midnight Run now. It looks like he is maskless, so he won't be able to go for this cuddle skip. I'm not sure if he goes for it.
I know he entered with 2 and took damage, so I didn't see where he took damage the second time.
It might have been one of the dragons. Like a lot of Midnight Run is pretty congested with enemies, so it's pretty easy to take a hit.
That'll be the last time we'll see Purah as well. There's only 2 Purah levels notably in this game, which is kind of surprising for how much they like the vehicle levels.
Well, we'll actually technically see Purah one more time, but it's not going to be in a level.
Right.
It's a detail I think a lot of people miss, but Purah actually does show up in the 4th boss fight.
Oh, in the back, right?
Yeah, it's in the second phase. Purah just attaches to Coco's ship and gives you more firepower.
So here we have Hypno over in the second boss, his boy Dingo Dial. This boss is just comical. There's a movement tech we haven't talked about called the glitched high jump, and it allows him to just get over those crystals and immediately hit the boss. It makes it very, very trivial. You don't normally have to dodge his laser fire blasts.
Yeah, the way the glitch high jump works for anybody who didn't catch the Crash 2 run is that if you are crouching or sliding and you do a high jump and you spin during it, you just get a bit more height for some reason. And like Vanny said, it just lets you jump over the crystals and just hit Dingo Dial, which like that's supposed to be a fight where you kind of just bait him into destroying the walls until you're able to just walk in and hit him. But you can just jump over it and trivialize the entire fight.
If I'm right, the same exact sort of like tech exists in the Insane Trilogy, right?
It is, yeah. They actually kind of made it stronger, where like you can get more height and you can do it throughout the entire jump as opposed to just early on. But yeah, it's one of the few techs that they carried from the original game into the Insane Trilogy. But Hypno is in the relic for Hang 'em High right now, which is going to be a 1 cycle, and it's one that we specifically call Yellow Gem early because he's going to get the Yellow Gem early. At least I'm assuming he is.
There's a secret warp room which gets unlocked with the number of relics you have, and if you get 10 relics, you can get the secret entrance for Hang 'em High, and that allows you to normally get the Yellow Gem on the path, and it takes you right to the end of the level. Well, because it's right next to the end of the level, you can actually jump, get on the platform, fix the camera, which allows the platform to come back. You're about to see him attempt it, and do that all in the time trial and 1 cycle it.
Yeah. It is noted you need the double jump to do this, which you get from Dingo Dial, which is why this time trial is saved for after that fight. But yeah, it's one of those tricks where because it's all off screen, it's pretty hard to understand, but once you learn, it's relatively consistent. And I think it saves like 50 seconds over going into Warp Room 6 to just get the Yellow Gem normally. But you do need this Yellow Gem before you get to Warp Room 3, because the first level in the next Warp Room is Dynamite, and it requires the Yellow Gem to fully complete. Two and Potty are like, at least on stream, they're like basically just completely synced up, which is pretty great.
Yeah, those two specifically will be interesting to see how that continues, since they're the top time and pretty close even.
Yeah.
This game is kind of notorious. Oh, go ahead.
As I think you mentioned at the beginning of the race, that Stu has been very much on the come up on this recently. I think in the past month, he's brought his time down from like a 250 to being like having a 202 and being like the top like 10. He's been gaming.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the best way to say it. Which Stu's pretty good at doing that.
Absolutely. One thing I was going to say about this game in particular, because of the nature of the time trials, you're doing the entire level in one go. It's very easy to just suddenly lose minutes because of a death. So hopefully it doesn't happen, of course, but it wouldn't be unusual for people to just desync just because of one small tiny mistake that is just such a big, loss of time.
Yeah, I like to joke that the pacing in this run is kind of like a heartbeat, where it's just really chill for a lot of it, and then it just like spikes for some level that has like a really terrifying one cycle where you can just potentially lose minutes if one thing goes wrong, and then it just goes back to being chill, and then it just happens for like 2 hours.
Absolutely, especially with like the no sound effects. It's kind of like I said before, a jam session, just a vibe session the entire time until it isn't.
Yeah, like the first 2 warp rooms in particular are pretty notorious in that like the first 2 levels, Under Pressure and Orient Express, are kind of stressful, and then after that you're just vibing until about Yellow Gem early, and then even that you're pretty much chill, and then after that the first real difficulty spike is Hot Cocoa.
Stu and Potty look.
Stu almost missed the Yellow Gem.
Yeah.
You had to go back for it. Yeah, so the gold relic time in this level I think is 52 seconds. So it's not the tightest, but it's also not the most lenient. Yeah.
Yeah, you can fail getting the camera fix for the platform, and you can still reattempt the skip, but it'll be, I think you can do one failure and still maybe make the gold relic, but if it's more than that,
I think if you fail at all, usually it's a wash, unless you get button glitch, which I think Stu might have actually gotten there because he got the platinum relic, which I don't know is possible without button glitch. So button glitch is not a mandatory trick at any point in the run, but it's a really convenient one. Basically, if you spin on the same frame that you enter a portal, you actually don't lose control of Crash, and you can just walk around in the warp room until the level starts loading. And if during that time frame you step on another level's button, the time trial times for the level you enter get overwritten with the time trial that you stepped on. So say for example I enter level 9 and I use the button glitch and then step on level 6. I will be doing level 9's time trial, but I'll be comparing to level 6's time trial times, which is very convenient for a lot of levels because it makes a lot of the time trials a lot more lenient. Which again, it is not mandatory at any point in the run, but it is very useful for making some of these tight time trials a lot easier to manage.
It's hard to pull off, and I think some certain levels are kind of easier to do the glitch, depending on how your entry into the actual warp goes.
Yeah, the center levels are generally like some of the harder ones to get just because the camera position is weird.
As we talked about before, Stu and Potty are both in Dynamite, which is a very long level and a very convoluted level. It's basically like you're going grocery shopping and you're hungry, so you pretty much buy everything. They're going to come out here with a lot of collectibles and a very, very strange route. So you see, they're both getting the checkpoint here, which is something they don't want to get later, which is why they're getting it now. And you can see some of them missed some boxes that they're now backtracking for. They're going all the way back to the yellow gem platform, which they're going to take that, and there's going to be another yellow gem at the end of it. There's going to be boxes between and another gem. So there's no exit, and all of the boxes in there contribute to the actual box gem in the level. So it's a very convoluted route, coupled with a secret exit that we'll see in the secret route.
Yeah, it's very particular and important that the last checkpoint that they break in this level is the one in the yellow gem route, which will make sense later on. Yeah, this is a level with a lot going on, and the routing is very confusing when you're first getting used to the game.
My favorite thing about Dynamite is when you're on the bonus platform coming back, if you walk forward, you can spawn the dino early.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything, but it might break a box.
Great. Yeah.
And it can also
it's
make
just really funny.
It can also get rid of Crash's eyebrows in the moment. So for like a little bit of like a visual glitch, it's entertaining to me.
It was going some fancy stuff on those TNTs. It looked like Klaxy died at the end of the bonus. A little bit unfortunate there.
Yeah, for some reason, this is like the bonus with the body slam tech to it. It's even got the little helpers, which is strange because you get the extended power for the body slam after the first boss, but you don't see it till after the second boss. So a little bit weird with the tutorial there.
I want to very quickly touch on Hypno's route here, which is very interesting. He actually opened this warp room with doubleheader, which maybe is because there's a very common crash that happens when you first enter it. Yeah, not normally something that happens, but maybe for the race setting he chose to do that. But yeah, here we're going to see Stu and Potty both grab the gem at the end of the level and then Death Abuse. This takes them back to the last checkpoint in the yellow gem path, which lets them grab that specific pterodactyl, which is totally hinted at. And this unlocks a very secret level called Aegypus Rex.
You're literally just jumping around on the dinosaur the entire time.
Yep. This is a 2D side-scrolling level with the Dino. It actually has 0 crates in it, so all you have in this is the clear gem and the relic. And something that's going to be very important in the level they're going to actually do immediately after this, but it also comes up here, is that there's a glitch on the North American version of this game where there's 2 levels like this one where you enter it by accessing it from another level. And for whatever reason on this version of the game, their time trial times are overwritten with their parent levels. So Aegypus Rex is supposed to have a much stricter relic time requirement, but you're comparing to the time trial times for Dynamite, which makes this relic painfully easy. And it's going to be extremely important for the next level that Potty and Stu are going to do as well, which is Hot Cocoa.
Yeah, and the like you kind of mentioned, the Death Abuse specifically is going to help set up some global cycles for Hot Cocoa coming up. And like I said before, the groceries are done. You're putting everything away. You've got 5 things to throw up.
Yeah, this is the one spot in the run where you throw more than 3 at any given time, and you're throwing 5.
Potty is making his first pass into Road Crash. Like Rico said, we're going to do a secret exit. This one's at least a little bit more of a hint than the pterodactyl. There's a little bit of an alien sign that you kind of hit, and it'll take you to Hot Cocoa. Those are the 2 hidden levels. Get them done early. Notably, I believe with item glitch, you can get Hot Cocoa's button to spawn, and you mentioned how it doesn't have the correct time trial time when you go through it this pass, but if you get the glitched button to show up, it'll actually have the correct time trial time. You can try to compete against it. That's hard.
Which is pretty funny. Yeah, so the reason this is so important is that the gold relic time for Road Crash, which is what Potty and Stu, when his commercial break is done, are going to be comparing to, is 1:20, which is very, very lenient and more than enough time for you to pull off a 1 cycle on Hot Cocoa. Which I guess, very briefly, the way this level is set up is that you actually spawn at the end of the level, and you need to find the nitro detonator in this, like, it's just like a gigantic circle of a level. And you just find the nitro detonator and just make your way back to it. Back to the start.
Unique level.
Yeah, it's actually really cool in its design. But yeah, so because the gold relic time they're comparing to is 1:20, you have plenty of time to hit the nitro detonator, break every crate in the level, and then also make it back to the start and get a gold relic. So you can 1 cycle this level. But in the PAL and Japanese versions of this game, the proper time trial time is what you compare to, and it's 30 seconds, and there's no way you have enough time to do that. So that's one of the biggest reasons that the North American version of the game is actually optimal for Crash 3.
There's a way to deal with it on the PAL and Japanese versions. You can kind of try to use the wave cycles to get over the nitros, but it's tough, and
not fun.
I don't think too many people have really messed with it, just kind of given NTSC's advantage.
I think the top PAL run doesn't even bother with it. They just go through the level again.
Yeah, there's no masks in here, so a death can be or any sort of damage obviously results in a death. It can be very, very punishing.
This is also one of the vehicle levels that I feel you get really tested for how good your movement is. Because if you get if you're really clean with your movement here and you get the right cycles, like I think yesterday I was watching Stu and he got like a 40-second relic. and usually like my better ones are like 48. So
Yeah.
this is definitely one where like if anybody ever tells you that like the vehicles are just like boring and like take no effort, then just they're wrong. Ooh, Stu's having trouble with this ramp. This ramp in particular is very rough because there is a shark right in front of it, and that shark takes forever to move. Like he will swim in front of the ramp and then he'll like check his like social media and just sit there forever, and you can lose a lot of time to it.
This last ramp too, if you're not careful, you can land on the bombs. So Stu's a little bit lost a little bit of that, but
yeah, Stu was
made it
having
through.
some rough moments at the end there, but didn't die, which is the most important part. So Audie is entering Road Crash. Stu is, I'm assuming, going to enter Road Crash next, and Klaxi is in it right now. I want to say this is probably the most, well, maybe not the most boring level in the run, but it's one of them. I almost forgot that Telltale Tales exists.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Lesser
this is
Cam.
one. Yeah, this is like one of the levels that's like not particularly interesting. Really, it's a very very long racing level.
It's tight too. It's not like
Yeah,
free for the second racing level. It's the hardest of like the bunch, arguably.
yeah. If you make this is one where I feel like casually this could be a roadblock and can stop you from beating the game. If you make even like a single major mistake, that can cost the entire race for you. But this is another one where you do the one cycle, because in this time trial, every single time crate becomes, or every single crate becomes a time crate, and you actually do need basically all of them to get the gold relic. You can like maybe skip one or two of them, so it's just better to just do the one cycle and just get them all.
I don't think we've talked about anything too much, but obviously with these levels there are the boost pads, and generally, as you saw kind of on Potty, he skipped the ramp that was immediately in front of it and was able to kind of carry it. So there's a little bit of like nuanced tech to help speed things up. And you also maybe saw with Potty, right before he hits the ramp, he actually releases X, and he'll pick it up a little bit after he lands, just to, because if you, he's going to decelerate slower, and so it'll end up faster in the long run. May botch that explanation, but very specific the way he's kind of going about that ramp.
So we have Hypno finishing up Aegipus Rex, and then Plexi's in Hot Cocoa right now. So Hypno, again, because of like the routing is so flexible, in this it might seem like Hypno's behind, but the fact is that he did doubleheader very early, so he's actually probably on about the same pace as the others. It looks like Klaxi's having some trouble with this ramp too. So what were you saying, Danny?
I was just going to say on the doubleheader thing, one kind of important clarification here. For the purpose of this race, backup saves are actually allowed, so you don't actually have to save in the middle of a run if you get a crash, just in case you get a crash. The leaderboard timing requires you to have saved in order to revive that run, so if you were to crash in doubleheader. But just for the, you know, the joy of a run, of the race, everybody's pretty much prepared. Backup saves at doubleheader, basically going into Warp 3, and then there are two other notable spots that can crash. And technically, every time you throw up an item in the warp room, you can crash, but that's, knock on wood, extremely rare.
I've actually gotten that crash more than I've gotten doubleheader.
Oh my gosh, you're one of those people.
Yeah, I've gotten the warp room crash twice, and I've gotten doubleheader once.
Oh, okay. Doubleheader is very interesting because it can uncrash, and maybe this would be.
I've gotten the uncrash a couple times.
Yeah, I have as well, and I got the texture glitch. I don't know if you ever saw that.
That's a classic. I love that one.
Yeah, so for anybody listening who is not familiar, like I said, I crashed going into the level, I uncrashed, and occasionally your textures can glitch. So you get like random like pastel like polygons in place of like numbers and collectibles and stuff like that. and usually it fixes itself when you leave the level. Sometimes I think it can even crash when you leave the level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, my run, it kept the texture corruption, and so I finished out the entire rest of the run like that.
Was that a
very
PB
common.
or did it just like? It was
Nah,
just
no
annoying
PB.
one-off run? Oh,
I was
that's
like, I
unfortunate.
have to finish this.
Yo, if that was a PB, I think I would have just retired after that. Just so that
Right.
was your PB forever. But yeah, and I do think the allowing of backup saves, I think, is a change from last year's SPRASH League, or I think it might have been one where I eventually argued enough in favor during last year's SPRASH League where it kind of happened halfway through, and I think that's a good change because like this is a race, so if something goes wrong, like you're already losing a lot of time just from having to like reboot the console. Like, why punish you harder just to like have to start at the beginning of the game? Also, apparently, I think something went wrong with Potty's road crash time trial. Looks like he started it over. I don't know if he missed a crate or if he just failed it or something.
Yeah, it says he tied.
Oh,
the
he
gold,
tied.
which is unfortunate because you have
that's
to
really
beat
bad.
the gold time. So yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, ties in this game are like ties in Pokemon. You basically you lose, so you have to do it again. That's really unfortunate. This is a very, very bad time trial to fail because it's such a long level and it's such a tight one. So it's not even like, how could this even happen? It's a very realistic thing that could happen. So it's just unfortunate that it happened to Potty there.
He's not technically out of it. Like I said, bad things are full afoot. It's Crash 3, so somebody else could have something happen and he could slingshot ahead. So.
Yeah, there's still plenty of one cycles where like someone else could lose just as much, if not more time. Yeah, according to Tulip in chat, he knocked into a car and went into the pit, so he ended up tying. Yeah, that's the thing I was saying, where even a single like major mistake in road crash can just cost everything for you, and it's really unfortunate that when it happens. This is just such an incredibly brutal level. I would say, like, it's one of the hardest crystals, and I would even say it's even one of the hardest gold relics to get. It's definitely one of the hardest platinums.
Sure. Your collision just kind of works against you. You bounce off of things, and yeah, it's not fun.
So we have Stu going into doubleheader. He unfortunately did not get the crash. So I don't know if we have a concrete cause of the crash, but it mostly has to do with just how laggy this level is because there's so much going on. There's so many textures. There's like rain, and it's a lot for the console to handle. And especially if you're on older hardware, which is more likely to lag, it's a lot more likely to happen. So generally, if you have like a good condition disc and you're playing on like a latest like version of like PS2, like a 90K model, you're less likely to have the crash happen, but it's still like a risk that's there.
You see on Stu, he's doing nitro bounces, which is kind of attack that comes up in a handful of levels. It's important for this level because we don't actually want to hit the nitro detonator at the end, because then we have to wait for the boxes to explode, the gem to spawn. So instead, we do our best to break all of the nitros on our way through, and it saves a little bit of time because we just grab the gem and leave.
Yeah, the detonator is also just a little out of the way compared to the path that you want to take at the end of the level, because you want to come from the left, and the nitro detonator is on the right, and then the gem is also on the left. And the way nitro bounces work is that this is different from how nitros work in Crash 2, because in Crash 2, nitro hitboxes just like you touch it, you get damaged immediately. But in Crash 3, nitros have expanding explosions, kind of like TNTs do. So if you buffer a jump on the nitro as you're hitting it, you can jump and just avoid the explosion. There, Stu just takes damage abuse because that's faster than the nitro bounce, and he only needs one mask leaving this level for the next one. But yeah, you'll see coming up here, the crate for the gem is on the left, and the nitro detonator is on the right, but he broke every nitro, so he didn't need to hit the detonator, and that just saves like a second or two. Just some minor optimization.
With nitro jumps, I think you have 2 frames. It's a 2-frame trick, and you're clear.
It's not as perilous as it looks. It's one of those things where when you practice it enough, it's actually pretty consistent. Especially because this is only a 30 FPS game. So Stu's entering deep trouble now. This is the second of the 2 underwater levels. This mask will be useful just for some damage abuse that he could potentially use later, so it's nice to save it from doubleheader, and it's not going to be useful beyond this point.
Of these little whirlpool things that you have to wait for them to stop before you can proceed, so it's nice to have the masks just run through them. One other thing with underwater levels, this is our last one. I don't know how much we're going to see it. There's a slight way to go faster. Obviously, you see them spinning. They're also mashing X between those spins to keep flapping their flippers. And I don't know if anybody goes for it, but at the edge of a box when you're swimming, you can spin like the last possible frame to get a little bit of a speed boost. Might be more of a thing in the time trial. It's not going to be consequential, but slight time save, and it looks kind of interesting, satisfying to pull off.
It is used a bit in a later part of this level when you damage abuse, or you don't even damage abuse, you dodge the hitbox of a TNT using that. Yeah. But right here, Stu's at the end of the level, but he's actually going to break the 3 crates and hit the exclamation box that's off screen here, and then he's going to actually backtrack because there is a secret pathway through this level that's going to give him the red gem and also a bunch of other crates, so he also needs to do this to get the box gem anyway. But as we mentioned much earlier, the red gem is what you need to fully complete Boneyard, so this will be very important for later on in the run.
This is one of those that does not get a 1 cycle. This secret quote-unquote area doesn't actually have any time crates to it for the time trial, and so we do crystal gem like we do in the first pass, and then just a normal relic pass.
Yeah, most like secret passages don't have time crates in them because the devs didn't expect you to go down this way during a time trial. And this one's just so long that it's just like not possible to 1 cycle it. So you just do it normally. We have Stu going into doubleheader again. We'll see if a crash happens. It did not, so he is in the clear for the most part. Again, there are some other spots where the game can crash, but they're far less common than doubleheader. Like, doubleheader is the crash point of this game. The only other notable ones I would say there's a possibility in the Death Route and Tomb Waiter in Warp Room 4 to crash, but that one is completely controllable on the runner's part. And then there's an extremely rare chance that you can crash at the end of the 4th boss fight, but I don't think I've seen that more than like once or twice ever, like amongst like everybody I've ever watched run this game, so that's not a likely one to happen.
One thing we haven't really mentioned, but you've probably already maybe noticed it, for time trials in normal platforming, whenever you go into triple mask form, there is no like animation anymore, which is kind of nice. So they were just kind of, the devs were conscious of our need to go speed.
Yeah.
We just instantly go into the form and keep on trucking.
So we have Hypno, Potty, and Klaxi all in deep trouble right now, while Stu's a bit further along than all of them because he's entering high time, which is pretty commonly the last level you do in this warp room as far as crystal goes. So I think that has been consistent with all 4 runners, so I'd say Stu has a pretty clear lead at the moment.
It's a very interesting level in both passes, in my opinion. Especially the bonus round. There's some interesting tech here. We'll see if Stu goes up against the wall.
Oh, he took an
if you go up
unfortunate
against
hit
that
there.
wall, you can, if you go up against the wall there, you can skip the flames, even if they're showing up.
He also did
not that is needed there.
Yeah, he also did a little trick there on the handrails where he dropped off of it. Ooh, that's another unfortunate mistake there. Yeah, so he dropped off the handrail and then immediately bounced on the carpet enemy, and that put him back on the handrail. It's just a very minor optimization and saves him from spinning, because spinning on the handrail stops your movement completely. So that's not a huge death or like a huge mistake like failing road crash would be, but that does give Potty a bit of room to work with to catch up. Because it's also gonna cost Stu. Well, the damage costs Stu the triple mask in this level. But yeah, like we said, it's definitely not over for Potty. There's definitely plenty of room for more mistakes to happen in the run because this is a very long one, and definitely easy for it to snowball in the wrong situations.
So Stu is passing by the death route platform. As you can see, it was just an outline because he died in the level before he touched it. Not a big deal because he's going to be one cycling that later with the relic.
Yeah, something very
And-
convenient about Crash 3 is that out of all of the levels with death routes, there is exactly one that you don't do in a one cycle anyway. So the whole like you can't die before you get to it thing doesn't really matter in this run all that much compared to like ooh. Yeah, that's a
That's
fun
rare.
one.
Yeah.
Scorpions are consistently some of the worst enemies in every Crash game that they appear. Their hitboxes are just they don't make sense. Sometimes you can be like right next to it and spin it and nothing happens, and then you move like an inch closer and it just immediately kills you.
If you saw, he had a mask with it too, and he died from it. So.
Yeah, yeah. The scorpions are just very, very cruel.
Yeah, he dropped down. I think the same frame he would have touched it, and instead of just taking damage and getting on the carpet, it dropped him like he got hit by the scorpion with no mask.
Yeah, those three like mistakes were like again like not enough to make up the deficit that Potty had from Road Crash entirely, but I want to say Potty was like a full level behind Stu before that, and now he's only about like half a level behind. Yeah, Stu's in the third boss right now, which is Entropy. There are some cute strats you can do with mask damage abuse to speed this fight up a little bit. They save like 4 seconds overall, and Stu doesn't have the masks anyway. I'm not sure if he would go for it just because it is pretty risky, and you'd lose a lot of time if you die in this fight.
Hopefully we'll see somebody go for those little forks in the middle, where you're jumping over those platforms you can actually stand on in certain ways. So those are utilized, and it's a very, very interesting and fun thing to pull off and see. Looks like Potty's leaving with 2, so.
Yeah, the key thing here is that Entropy has iframes, and if you get too close to him, he will auto kill you, and you cannot escape the attack even if you run away from him. So that's why you need the mask, is that you need the damage abuse on him, and then have the iframes running while he tries to auto kill you, and then it causes him to also start the next phase like a couple frames earlier. And that's how it saves like 4 seconds. It saves like 2 seconds per phase that you do it. We'll see if Potty goes for it.
And also notably with this boss fight, if you remember from Tiny how there was no music at all, if you come in and do the same sort of skip, you will delay the
he is
music
going for it.
instead.
Yep, so Potty gets the first damage abuse there. That was the auto kill attack, but he was still in the iframes from taking a hit. It started the next phase early, and it also lets Potty hit Entropy a lot earlier because he's much closer to him. So you can get a pretty much optimal smack on him. And then the third phase right here. Yep, and then he just stands right there, and he should be good for this.
That line jump back to that fork, it's nerve-wracking, but it's really not difficult. You generally get a feel for how much of your NSJ you're going for.
So that's the nice 4-second time save for Potty there.
And Stu just entered the death route. We got the death tornado spin. We're gonna see. Actually, he doesn't have a mask, so we're not gonna see the handrail skip here. But a big reason why we do this one cycle after we get the death tornado spin is because of some extra tech that the tornado spin allows us.
Yeah, it just makes the one cycle easier, so that's a big part of it as well.
Even if you're not going for the big handrail skip.
Yeah.
And on Potty right here, he's doing a little bit of a camera trick to get up on top. It's very, very, very fun.
So he's sliding across the buildings, and that saves some time on those handrails. And then there's another spot in the death route where you can do the same thing.
And that was not as easy as it looks. There is a rhythm to it and like a consistent way you're supposed to go through it. There are holes up there that you can just fall through or get stuck on. It's actually kind of annoying when you're first learning.
Yeah, the first one, like you're more likely to get stuck, but the second hangrail in the actual death route it's one that I've personally messed around with, and don't go for it in runs because I do struggle with like the holes that are there. Yeah, we see Potty
He's
going
up.
for this as well. He's jumping over the holes there, and yep. Altogether, that does save a fair bit of time. So
You saw
hopefully-
Stu, I think, finished around like a minute 1.
yeah, he had like a 1 minute. Potty has a 51, but you also have to remember that Stu going through the section with the hangrails means he did get a couple more time crates, so you have to factor in that as for the time save as well. It does save a good bit of time overall. So Stu is in the midst of deep trouble, which should be the last thing in this warp room, the deep trouble relic. So he's still about half a level ahead of Potty, but that gap's definitely closed. Oh, it looks like Claxy's going for the... Or Claxy was going for some stuff in the entry fight as well. I don't know if he went for the full tilt thing. It looks like Hypno's just choosing to play it safe with this one, which is completely fair. It's again only like 4 seconds of time save, and profoundly bad to mess up and die in. So definitely completely valid to just keep it safe. According to Jamie, Claxy went for damage abuse but got hit by the second clock instead of the third, so he had to back off, which is very fair as well.
He was going into Boneyard here, second time. Again, he's going to go for the 1 cycle. This is a fairly lenient 1 cycle, and if you're starting with the game, it's a reasonable one to like aim for. You don't need too tight of movement.
Yeah, this 1 cycle is like it's kind of like, I want to say a gatekeeper one, where if you're not familiar with the level's layout, it feels impossible. But once you are comfortable with it and you have it memorized, it like Vanny said, it's very, very lenient. It's also one where, because of how it's set up, there's not really a reason to not go for it. Because in the situation that you fail it, you're just going to have to restart the level anyway. Whereas if you don't go for it, you just leave the level and then restart the level anyway. So it's doesn't really make a difference to go for it and fail it than it is to just not go for it at all.
One thing we've been kind of seeing, you saw it with the red gem platform right there. It's called a stick. Basically, with any raised platform, some are easier than others, you can actually slide jump right up against it, and instead of actually jumping up and landing on it, the next frame kind of puts you on the platform and initiates the platform moving. Saves a little bit of very slight time, but it's also kind of cool to see it executed.
The NSJ makes it very easy to stick to like basically every platform in Crash 3. In Crash 2, it's a bit tighter and like requires a bit more finesse. But it's very convenient for stuff like this to have that be a consistent thing. Stu's looking good on this 1 cycle in Boneyard, which means he and Potty are both coming up very closely to probably the hardest part of the entire run, which is the Tomb Time 1 cycle. Stu will be heading over there now. So Tomb Time is a very interesting level to 1 cycle, and it is by far like the most difficult 1 cycle in the game.
Very satisfying to pull off, but yeah, very, very difficult. And again, it comes down to a lot of the game. Just, is it going to let you play the game? Are you going to be able to do your inputs, or is it going to lag and drop things?
Yeah, so the gold time in Tomb Time is 110, and I think like the general like best that people get can be like 105, so there's not a lot of time to work with, but Stu is going for it. So what he's going to do here is he's going to skip everything up to the first bonus, up to the bonus. There's only 1 bonus. He's going to clear the bonus, and then he's going to death abuse. This will take him back to the beginning of the level, but he'll have every crate in the bonus, and then he's going to do everything else in the level in the time trial. And you have barely enough time to make it.
Cool little tech with the death tornado spin there. You saw him spin, and then he was able to jump out of it. Death tornado spin, we'll talk on it more later, but you get a little bit of a hover.
Ooh, Potty got the button glitch.
So, okay. It's going to make things lenient for him.
Yeah, so Potty has an extra 12 seconds to work with because he used the button glitch to stand on the button for G-Wiz, which has a gold time of 121 or 122 or something. So he has more of a window than Stu does, but I still would not say that makes it free. It's still not an easy one cycle. This is one where your movement is put to the absolute test. You have to have good movement to make this one cycle. Stu looks like he's off to a strong start, though. So this next part coming up, so he just got a triple, and there's another mask here. He has to avoid it, and he did, which is good. If you get that mask too early, you will basically, even with button glitch, that probably ends your chance of getting the one cycle. It's just that important of a mask to not lose.
The oil there is.
Oh, okay. That's a rough one, but I think he'll still be fine.
Could still be, yeah. The oil here can help you. If you're not too familiar with how it works exactly, you can store a little bit of momentum. And again, if you're not familiar, it'll work against you.
So he's got a 51. This is very tight, but I think it's still doable.
Good mask form.
So he's got about like 8 seconds to. Ooh, that's a bad death. That is an opportunity for Potty to catch up.
That particular spot, if you cut that too far to the left, you can actually get stuck on that like that pole there, center platform thing, whatever you want to call it. So it looks like he just maybe took a little bit too slow of a death tornado spin and fell down too soon before the actual platform.
Yeah, that's a brutal one to have happen.
Yeah. Yeah, Stu and Potty, I believe, are the only two that'll be going for it. I think Hypno and Klaxy will just be doing the normal strat.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where, like, unless you're like a top level runner, it's generally not recommended. But yeah, just like that. Well, yep, Potty got it. So just like that, Potty's in the lead again. Oh yeah, I forgot Potty got the button glitch. So
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think the gold might be 110.90, so he might have barely gotten it even without that. I'll double check what that gold time is. Actually,
no, somebody pulled off.
Oh, it's a 110 flat. So yeah, no, Potty only got that because of button glitch.
Nice.
He would have barely missed it without it. Yeah, no, Hypno is just going through the level normally. And so not doing this one cycle is about a minute slower, but again, unless you're like one of the top level runners, it's generally not recommended because it is that difficult to do.
Got a question here. What's button glitch? It's basically whenever you hit a level to load it, you can jump into the little portal, and if you jump and spin at the same time you touch the portal.
Oh, I think Klaxy's going for it actually.
Really?
Yeah. Continue your explanation. Sorry.
Okay. You can actually keep movement instead of getting like the little cutscene that you enter the portal. And if you go and touch a different button, you'll load that second button's time trial times, which can make certain things a lot easier. So that's what Potty was able to do, and he got 12 seconds of lenience for Tomb Time one cycle. Now, Klaxy might just be going for it and just seeing if he can get it. And if he gets the box gem, he's just going to reset the relic.
Yeah, so I think
to do not that way.
No,
but
I think he's actually truly going for it because he just reset there.
Okay.
So I'm trying to remember who I timed this with. Okay, actually, I think I remember. It was Nitrovsky telling me this with that Burger timed it. And the difference between not going for the one cycle or going for it and failing it is basically about the same.
Oh, okay.
So there was the possibility that Klaxy was just going for it and then just going to reset if he didn't get it. But the fact that he reset when he was flipping that box makes me think he's just actually going for it.
We'll keep an eye on him. But Stu and Potty over here are out here on arguably one of the toughest levels in the game, Tomb Waiter.
It's also one of the coolest levels in the game.
Very cool. Very punishing. These water cycles rise and fall, and if you're not on top of something when they're at their highest, they'll drown. Third mask form actually keeps them down, so that is one of the more important mask forms here.
Looks like Hypno. I'm seeing in chat Hypno might have died in Relic for Tomb Time.
Okay.
From what I'm reading here.
One in Relic and one before, I see. Yeah, the Warp 4 will have some varying routing as well. But for the most part, once we're done with it, we're done with it.
Yeah, nice. Warp 4, I want to say, is probably the most flexible warp room in terms of routing. You can really do this in whatever order you want. But then, like, after Warp 4, Warp 5 is actually extremely rigid, where I don't think there's any variation on it at all.
Yeah, the potties and Tell No Tales, which is very notable. It's a very long jet ski level and fairly boring.
So from what I'm reading in the chat, Claxy got the button glitch, is why he went for the one cycle.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Potties and Tell No Tales, this is the level where like literally nothing goes on. But yeah, so Claxy's entering Tomb Waiter himself now, while Stu's in Sphinxinator. Tomb Waiter is a level where I feel like Crash 3's movement is just at its most beautiful. Like, a fast Tomb Waiter is just so amazing to watch. It's also very amazing to pull off.
Mm-hmm. And because of the cycles, there's sometimes where it's like, I could go for like a very tight strat, but if you're not going for like enough of the strats, then you're kind of just not going to get the proper cycle, so it's not worth like risking your hide for. You're just either going to save 5 seconds or you're not.
Yeah, from a design perspective, I just think this level is fascinating because you can choose to do risky, like, unsafe strats with, you know, double jumps and death tornado spins and bouncing on crates, but you can also simply choose to wait out these water cycles and take the level really safely, which I think is great because it's a challenging level, but there's an option to take it slow if you want to. But a key thing about the invincibility in Tomb Waiter is that it stops the water from rising. So on top of just the general movement speed buff you get in Tomb Waiter, that's just also a big part of triple being very important in this level.
Yeah, Hypno and Claxy, I believe, are pretty close.
And then Stu and Potty has a small lead at the moment, but again, anything can happen.
Of note with Tell No Tales, this is one level that can also be one-cycled. It's just, again, very, very difficult to do. So
generally
we
not
usually
worth
get
it.
the Crystal and Gem first pass and Relic second. You get these weird pelican that'll sit on the boxes, and if you hit them when they're on the box, they'll hurt you. They're very, very rarely ever like on a bad cycle for that, but it looks like Stu had to wait for that. Sphinxinator, Claxy, just entered. Very fun little 4 boxes before the beginning, so you have to kind of backtrack for. You know, that's the kind of thing that sells guidebooks, right?
Yeah. I always like to say how Crash 2 is very clever in how it hides its secrets and that they're cryptic but hinted to, and then Crash 3 is kind of just like Lamau, figure it out, punk. Like,
there's at least not as many, but yeah, they're not.
Yeah, the ones that do exist are not. Yeah. The convenient thing about Eggipus Rex, at least, and also Hot Cocoa, is that you don't actually need either of those levels to get the true ending, because without them, you can actually get 100%. But max completion in this game is 105%, so you do need them for this run. Claxy backtracking there to make sure he gets everything. Sometimes those, like, 3 2x3 stacks of crates can be very trolly and not all break if you off-screen them, and yeah, that was a pretty unfortunate death there as well.
In most situations with TNTs, if you get them counting down and you run away, you're usually good. But obviously, he's checking his box count here to just make sure.
Generally, 46 is the correct number. It depends on how many nitros you break on the way to that stack, but there's 18 there, so you can kind of just use some math to figure it out as well.
Yeah, that seems to be it. Potty ahead, Stu a bit behind, then Hypno and Claxy.
Potty is entering Bye Bye Blimps through the commercial break. It's also a level where there's not a huge amount going on, but I also am notoriously awful at that level, so I don't know why I'm saying that.
They're interesting levels, but yeah, they can be a little bit bland at just watching.
At face value, it doesn't seem like there's much going on, but it's pretty important with like movement to very quickly break the blimps. I do think Mad Bombers is the much more interesting of the two.
Unfortunately, yeah. Just scary and bad hitboxes.
Yeah. But eventually we'll be able to see Potty and Bye Bye Blimps shortly. I guess there's also a non-zero chance that he'll finish Bye Bye Blimps before the commercial break. Oh, well, Stu's entering it now too, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so the key thing with plane levels, at least Bye Bye Blimps and Mad Bombers, is that if you're not holding a direction, Crash or Coco will always just recenter to like just fire directly in front of them. So you want to line yourself up where you're lined up properly with the blimps and the crates in order to break them correctly. I'm gonna study how they do this because I've been very awful at these levels recently.
There's also notably, I didn't see Stu do it, but if you hold right entering Bye Bye Blimps or the other plane level, you can actually change your direction when you load in, and so you can veer right earlier than you would normally, which only matters for the first pass if you want the, time trial the second. There are a couple other levels where you can kind of like gain a little bit of movement or like input something before the cutscene loading you into the level finishes. We haven't really touched on those, and there are only a few where it really matters because sometimes you're facing the wrong direction. Yeah, these planes, you can just kind of off-screen them, the enemies, and you don't really have to worry about them.
Yeah, the developers were very, very kind and made it so that they don't fire at you unless they're directly in front of you. Something that the developers of Wrath of Cortex did not do.
And also notably with these levels, your mask gets erased if you have any masks going into these, regardless if it's time trial or not. Ooh, Claxy is a little hairy right now.
Ooh, so he's in no danger of like failing the time trial. The gold relic here is like 145 or something, I think. But yeah, the water here can be perilous.
Yeah, we talked about Boneyard being a fairly easy one cycle. This is probably even easier. So
there's two one cycles that I think that anybody, regardless of skill level, can do. Tomb Waiter is one of them. The other is Sphinxinator.
Yeah.
Like if it is literally the first time you've played the game, you can probably still get both of them.
Sphinxinator definitely, I feel like, is easier than just like the normal pass through the level.
It might actually be faster than like
it might be
like even without the one cycle, it's faster than going through the level normally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Luckily, not everybody's in Tell No Tales at once, so
that would have been an interesting part of the commentary. Like, hey, what's going on, man?
I just go take a bathroom break or something.
Yeah.
You don't need us.
So it's hard to tell because the route just diverges so much in this warp room, but I think Potty still has a slight lead.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like too bad out of anybody yet, so I would assume that's held.
Yeah, because there was Potty's loss in Road Crash, but then Stu failed the one cycle in Tomb Time, which kind of balanced it out. But here's Claxy's in the Sphinxinator death route or the gem route, and this is probably the closest you get to emulating Crash 2's movement with the slide spin speed.
Just slide the entire time. And you got to be careful. You saw Claxy do the full death tornado spin. It's possible with your momentum to carry you over the gem and into the portal.
Into the portal, yeah.
I don't know. everybody might do that once and they're like, I can't do that ever again, man.
Yeah. The great one is when you think you can make the door cycle and then it closes like right before you reach it and you just slowly descend to your death.
Yeah, because you can't move backwards again because of momentum. And notably, Stu, going over that ramp, I know in the past we used to skip that ramp. That was one of the ramps we would just kind of go to the right of, and you could just not go over it and still pass all the obstacles. Very slight time save, but interesting, at least to me.
They're all in Tell No Tales now. Okay, well, Potty's leaving. It's fine.
There's a secret area. Obviously, we have to do it for the first pass getting the gem, but notably, we kind of brought it up before, that the secret area does actually have time crates to it. They're all threes, which is kind of nice and actually makes the one cycle doable. Again, nobody wants to do it, but...
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think we haven't really touched upon it, but in some of these one cycles, so Potty just did it here in Tomb Raider, but also in High Time, you notice they like grab the clock and immediately die. The reason is that like a death abuse resets all the global cycles, which we haven't really fully explained. Cycles in this game, for the most part, are running while the entire time the game is running, as long as it's not paused or loading. And you can reset them with a death. So by dying at the start of a time trial, you can manipulate the cycles to be exactly what you want them to be.
And for a level like Tomb Raider, that's actually very, very important.
Yeah, it's critical for a lot of these like harder one cycles like Tomb Raider, High Time, and it will be especially important in Bug Light.
Even if you're not going for any sort of like big God cycle in Tomb Raider, you definitely want to reset.
Yeah, just having the consistency of knowing what's happening is like a very big factor in saving time, and also just not making a huge mistake.
Yeah. As you speedrun, obviously you get familiar with like what you specifically are going to do in any given situation, so having that predictability is just very nice to build off of.
That was a very clean Tomb Raider on Potty's part. A 111 is very nice time for that one cycle. You have Hypno and Stu both in this one cycle as well, and Klaxy slowly but surely making his way through Tunnel Tales.
One thing we're really not going to see, they're not going to go into level 19 the normal way, Future Frenzy. There's actually a secret entrance, similar to what we would do for the Yellow Gem if we couldn't do Yellow Gem early. We have to go into Warp 6 for the first time and go through that entrance. But we do need a certain number of relics before we can do that, so that's why we have to actually come into Warp 4 before going there.
You need to have 20. Klaxy's doing the second pass of Tunnel Tales. Then Stu is going into Sphinx Inner, which Potty is already in right now. Looks like Hypno will be heading there next as well, going off of the splits.
Almost looked like Potty was gonna get a slight door closed there. Yeah, if with those doors, you can pass through them and they can start to close on you, but if you're already far enough through, they'll just stay open because they're not going to hit you.
So you see Potty here is heading, he's heading to Warp Room 6, which is this platform right here. So a lot of runners do a couple levels in Warp Room 6 here before Future Frenzy, just because they're terrifying to have at the end of the run. Potty does not do that, so he's just going right into Future Frenzy, and he'll save the rest of this Warp Room for the very end of the run.
I think Hypno is the only one of the four that's going to do some when he goes down there the first time.
Yeah, it's technically optimal to save them for the end of the run. It's like very minor Warp Room optimization. And it also, if you don't, then you hinge on taking 2 masks out of Ski Craze to have the optimal Future Frenzy, which is general rule of thumb: never rely on anything in Ski Crazed. So,
More on that later.
Yeah, it just makes more sense to just do Future Frenzy and save all of Warp 6 for later in the run, even though it is definitely scarier that way.
You see, Potty just took that platform at the end there, and for some reason they put us like a third of the way through the level, and maybe even a half, and now we have to go back to the beginning pretty much and get all the boxes.
Yeah, and you had to backtrack through the entire first front section, and it's honestly like a little mean. Like,
yeah,
the backtracking in Future Frenzy is what everybody thinks the backtracking in Crash 2 in general is like all the time. Basically.
There's some laser cycles you sometimes really don't know what they're doing. Those ones right there when you first load back
It's
in.
especially hard because there's no sound effects. Like if the sound effects were on, this would be much easier of a section. But you kind of just have to know what's going on, or even sometimes you might just have to guess.
You can luckily go around those, but obviously that's going to be a little bit slower than being able to just go straight through. So when in doubt, you can just go around.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, there's one more future level. These future levels can be very, very punishing, very long. Very interesting, but again, just difficult.
Yeah, and they also have like some flavor of backtracking in a sense. Future Frenzy is a bit more traditional in that you're literally backtracking, whereas the later one will just have you repeat a section of the level that you already did.
Potty did well though. He would manage to keep his 2 masks, and now he's got triple mask form, which is always very, very nice.
I think another thing of note here is that because Hypno is doing Area 51 and Ski Craze early, for pretty much the remainder of this race, he's gonna look like he's tremendously behind, when in reality he's finished 2 levels that the others have not. And then it'll converge again when they're all at the end of Warp 6.
Potty here is going into one of the funnest, most fun bonus rounds here. Very satisfying to pull off. For some reason, they've got the little tutorial stuff here again. You know, I don't know why it's so late, but there's something, right?
Yeah.
Little hiccup, but otherwise fairly decent. Those UFO guys have kind of like screwy hitboxes. It's not uncommon for people to land on top of them and still take damage. They're a little bit to the side too much.
That was a very clean glitch high to hit both of the crates above the nitro.
No sound effects. There are no sound effects because it saves about a little bit over a minute across the entire run. The cutscenes that can play between loading into a level, where you have like the heads talking to you, those won't play because they're attached to the sound effects for whatever reason.
So the game just doesn't even try to load them in, so you just save time on that, and with how many there are over the run, it's just a little over a minute. Looks like Klaxy took an unfortunate... As Klaxy took an unfortunate damage here, but yeah, Potty is in the best fight in the series, don't at me.
It's a very noisy fight, so some people don't like that, some
one.
people do. It's cool. It's very interesting. Engine usually is got its share of interesting fights, so.
Engine is like consistently like one of the strongest boss fights, but yeah, this is like it's just like a 2-phase dogfight in space where you're just like constantly barraging him attacks while he constantly barrages you with attacks, and I don't know, I just think it's really cool.
It's got like a very, very high skill ceiling as well. Like you can always do better because we're humans and we just can't do it perfectly. So yeah, you can see as it shoots, it opens up itself to being able to be destroyed, and you have to take advantage of that while not dying. It's fairly easy to not die, especially if you've played it enough, but landing those shots can be a little bit tricky.
So Hypno is actually giving us a very early sneak preview to Ski Craze. This level is very cruel to one cycle because you cannot make a big mistake, but this level being a jet ski level and having stuff like waves and ramps that throw you over crates likes to force you to make a mistake. And like technically none of it's RNG because the waves are on global cycles and you can kind of just like anticipate and react to the cycles, but it's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, this is a very terrifying level to have late in the game, especially if you do it at the very end of the run.
Yeah, I was always a fan of getting these levels out of the way early, just to not have to worry about them later. Same thing with like double header. It's like if I'm gonna crash, I want to be crashing as early as possible, so I don't waste as much time. But if I push my time further, I'll probably do things properly.
The funny thing for me is that I kind of had the opposite mentality where I used to do ski craze in Area 51 early for your reasons. Like if I mess them up, I'd rather mess them up early on. But I eventually reached the point where I was like, well, I'm never finishing runs because every time I mess up ski craze, I just get mad and tilted and I just restart. Yeah. So I was like, well, if I put it at the end of the run and I mess it up, I'm like, well, I may as well finish the run anyway. Well, yeah. So then I just started finishing more runs that way, and I think that just helps me more in the long run by being more comfortable with the end game. Hypno took Hypno's getting ski crazed, which is not fun, but I think he still can make this if he's just able to clean up the rest of it. The relic time here is 50-50. So
all right.
The thing is that if this level goes cleanly, you can get like a 35-second or faster time, but every mistake just whittles away that time so fast. But he's still in the clear. Yeah, he's good here. He's good.
Yeah. If your end goes well enough, you can actually freeze the timer for like a good chunk of the entire level.
So. Hypno popping off a little bit there, very well deserved. That is a horrifying level to have go wrong.
So over on Potty's screen, we have him in Warp 5 doing the first level, Flaming Passion. This is an interesting level, punishing level, and unique in a lot of different ways. There's no masks actually in the first pass.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of get it out of the way.
Yeah, this is also the first level. This is the only level in the run that has a death route that you don't want to.
Yeah, it'll actually loop back, and you go up. You could really see where you come back. Right by those big boxes.
Yeah. Potty used the bazooka which he got from beating Engine to just shoot that one crate before entering the death route. That's because the death route when you finish it puts you a little further in the level, and that one crate is the only one you miss, so it just saves time to just shoot it.
We haven't touched too much on it, but the Death Tornado Spin opens up a lot of safety and some strats. It's very cool because if you're in like oh no, I just moved wrong, I need to save myself. It's better off to Death Tornado Spin because you can kind of keep your momentum with it rather than double jumping, whereas double jumping will kill your momentum, which is slower. And so it's a nice get out of jail free card in some situations, as well as just the movement tech with it, because you can kind of vary how fast you spin, and it'll control your descent and stuff like that. A lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah,
very
the
fun
Death Tornado
bonus
Spin.
Around here.
Yeah, the Death Tornado Spin is just such a nice like Swiss Army knife of a power up, where like it's really good just for like optimal movement. It's really good as a backup plan, like a safety net. It's just such a stupidly good power up. Like I think it's easily the best power up in the game.
Notably, if you're familiar with Crash 2, you could dupe boxes in Flaming Passion. There's no use for it though.
Yeah, it's kind of just it can happen on accident, but there's no practical use for the dupe at any point in Crash 3, but it can happen in like 3 or 4 levels. It's this one, Sphinxinator, and I think there was one more. I don't remember. I think maybe Bud Light.
Those are 2 I remember.
It's definitely Flaming Passion and Sphinxinator. I do remember that. But again, it has no purpose like it does in Crash 2. Just because the bonuses are so close to the end of the level anyway.
Notably, one thing that we haven't talked about a whole lot is some of these time trials. The later ones can be kind of easy to die in, notably Flaming Passion, Future Frenzy. So it's not uncommon for runners to learn like the normal pass through, and then also kind of have to learn and keep in mind like the respawn cycle. Potty taking damage there, which is a little unfortunate. You do like to get triple mask form for this.
Probably like a 5-second time loss or so.
Should be able to at least take 2 out.
Another thing to note with this level and Gone Tomorrow, I think Yeah, there's nitros in these levels, but there's no nitro detonator because they want you to use the bazooka. So you do have to manually destroy every nitro in this level.
You saw there, Potty was a little bit hesitant on that final little rug to bounce up on. You can actually clip kind of easily into that corner there right at the end of the level and just die. Kind of similar like what you can do with Eternal Woods.
There's a clip of that happening to me in one of my very old runs of this game before I started taking 105 seriously.
Not PB pace, I hope.
I don't remember. It probably was because it was just like it was when I had like a 225 or something. All I remember is it happened. I just kept saying I hate this game so much. and now this is my favorite of the 3 to run. So you know how the turns have tabled.
Yep. So yeah, Gone Tomorrow here up in Potty screen. Like I said, like Rico brought up before, there's going to be a little bit of backtracking and retracing over. So you'll see him skip this first checkpoint and take up the next checkpoint coming up instead. Just a little bit of a safety net, and you may as well do it. It's not really going to hurt too much.
Yeah, because of the way this is level set up is that it's kind of checkpoint starved as a result, so you kind of just delay checkpoints as much as you can.
Mitigate kind of your deaths as well.
Looks like he's doing this bonus in the first pass as well. I don't know which is more commonplace of the two. I've seen some people like save it for later, and then I've seen others do it early. Doesn't really make a difference either way. I think it's just preference.
Yeah. You might have noticed there were a few spots where there were outlines of boxes. And there were a couple exclamation point boxes that would, you know, fill those boxes in, but the one that actually does it is here in this green gem path you're going to see towards the end. And so that's kind of the, I wouldn't say the entire reason why we're here. Obviously there are boxes and a gem over here, but just why he left some of the TNTs back, because we need the TNT to quickly get the boxes that were under those strong crates.
This is also why you open this warp room with Flaming Passion, is that you need the green gem from that level for this level, and you technically also need it for Bug Light. You can technically not use it in Bug Light. You can just Death Tornado spin over the part where you need it, but it's not really worth it.
Yeah, so that opened up these 4 here.
Yeah, the top crate in that 4 stack is outlined without the crate in the gem route. And then there will also be 2 that are under a bridge that body skips that will now be visible.
Yeah, if you were to somehow destroy the TNT, you would still be okay. You could use the bazooka to get those crates, but obviously that's all going to be a little bit slow. Instead, you just bounce, run away, and you're good.
And from here, Potty just has to close out the level, but he does have to be careful because there's no checkpoints anymore from this point on. So a death here could be very costly.
And hitboxes with some of these enemies are kind of weird. The footballs are a little bit scary, and the porcupines are generally free, though their spikes are like a little bit active before they look like they're active, and that can get you
so many different names for those. I think that's the first time I've heard someone call them footballs. I usually hear them be called beehives.
I've not heard that one.
I don't even know what I used to call them. I just call them beehives now because that's what I hear everybody else say. I think my favorite one is in Crash 2, the bombs in the jetpack levels. People just call them tomatoes.
Tomatoes?
Yeah.
They're apples.
They're Wumpa fruit. Explosive Wumpas.
There we go.
Yeah, so Potty's going through the time trial Gone Tomorrow. This one's really cool because it has 2 triple masks in it. So when it goes well, you just fly through the level.
Very fun, yeah. Of note, those Shooty McPew guys, like all games from this era, thank you. Like all games from this era, after they shoot 3 times, they'll turn around and shake their butt at you. So just taunt you. But then that's when you kill them. Claxy opting for bazooka strands for those last nitros instead of trying to just damage abuse through them.
He doesn't have
a mask. Yeah.
stealing that. So yeah, Potty's just flying through this side-scrolling section with the triple. It's just, I'm pretty sure, yeah, you can go through this so quickly that like you reach the platform before the triple actually ends, and then when you get to this section, there's just another mask. So then you can just fly through this ending section as well. This is definitely, in my opinion, one of the most fun time trials in the run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember.
Hypno's finishing up Bye Bye Blimps here, but again, remember that he is 2 levels ahead of everybody else because he's already finished Area 51 and Ski Crazed. Then Klaxy took an unfortunate death at the start of Flaming Passion, but that's not too big of a mistake.
No, but again, going back to like now he's got the respawn cycle, which is like slightly different strats that he has to keep in mind.
So Potty's in Bug Light, and this is going to be home to another one of the hardest one cycles. Not quite as hard as Tomb Time, but still definitely a rough one that generally only is done at higher levels. This is one that like I personally only learned in the last like year or 2.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But this first pass is like not too crazy.
Yeah, the 2 big one cycles, they're kind of like opposite dynamics. Tomb Time is like you have more leniency to it, but it's overall just more difficult. Whereas this one, it's easier, but it's tighter.
Yeah, so Tomb Time. Yeah, it's just you have to have like a good consistent movement throughout it, but you can make more mistakes. Bug Light, like everything for like the first, like I want to say 60% of it, you cannot make a like even like a couple minor mistakes will probably kill it for you.
Yeah.
But then like once you get through a certain point in Bug Lights, it becomes a lot more lenient, and the movement is definitely a lot less strict. But both are pretty challenging one cycles overall. They require pretty good movement and pretty good knowledge of how the cycles work.
We're continuing the darkness levels trend from the first 2 games, but this one and Area 51 are the only ones in this game. This is the only one that utilizes like a light source that like
the
you have to kind of keep in mind. Yep. Area 51, like we said, saw with Hypno, you kind of just move in your headlights. Consistent though. And you also have the UFOs, but
I think Potty's gonna immediately go into one cycle here. Yep.
And that's a helpful button glitch you can get as well.
Yeah, because the longest gold time in here is Mad Bombers, which is like 155. So you see, Potty's gonna reset Trial immediately here. He now knows what all the door cycles in this level are gonna be like, and that is actually critical to this one cycle. Like if it wasn't for that, this would not be like consistently possible.
If you miss it, then you're just it's over. You have to hit the very first one, and then second.
Yeah, it's very convenient that the respawn cycle for this time trial is very, very nice. Yeah, it's like he has to catch like so the door cycle in particular he wants to catch is the first one in this gem path, and this gem path requires all 5 of the colored gems, which is why you do this after Flaming Passion as well.
It looks like he's got a good bit of leniency.
Yeah,
so from here on out, it's pretty free.
Yeah, once you get past that first door, you're good. But yeah, you can technically Death Tornado spin over this hole. It's not really worth it. So people just do this after Flaming Passion.
Cool little damage abuse on that Nitro keeps that door open. That's very important. Yep. Yeah, these combs here at the end, sometimes I know they've gotten me in the past, but they kind of move based on your positioning. So
yeah,
if you keep things consistent, you're fine. But when you're kind of starting out with this and you're not moving the same way every time, that last one will get you.
This is also, we haven't really touched on it, but like you can zigzag your NSJs in this game, kind of like how you can zigzag your NSSs in Crash 2. And having good zigzag is also a critical part of this one cycle. But yeah, Potty got it with a 2-second window. The gold here is 134.80. I want to say 80 or 90. One of the two.
Gave me a heart attack too, because after you get the gem, there's that downward slope. If you're being safe, you just death tornado spin, but he slid and he didn't like get his jump, so he kind of hesitated. It almost looked like he was gonna extend his slide into the pit, which would be awful.
Apparently, Stu had part of the bonus in bug light deload. Yeah, that can just happen.
Yeah.
There's just so much fruit going on in that bonus, and the game can't handle it. So sometimes it just deloads the floor. But we see Stu's gonna go for the one cycle now.
With the bug light and the deloading, it's interesting to me how in Crash 2 on NTSC, one of the bug light levels is also one where you can have issues because all the Wumpa fruit on screen and stuff.
Yeah, Night Fight. That one on NTSC can crash the game.
Yep.
There's so much fruit. So Potty's going through Orange Asphalt right now, which is the third motorcycle level, and he did a whole skip there to just carry this boost. I'm guessing he missed a crate because he's going for the one cycle. But yeah, you can carry this turbo for a very long time if you know what you're doing.
This is probably the most interesting motorcycle level in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's all the whole skips and stuff like that. And with the deloading, actually with the 105 TAS makes use of that deloading to kind of get through things even quicker. So.
Looks like this one cycle is going very well for Stu as well. And Potty's gonna do a few more whole skips here. Saves him having to go off of these ramps. I don't know if Potty missed a crate or if he was just willingly going for the one cycle. Orange Asphalt's the one motorcycle level where you kind of have a choice. Where I don't know what the current meta of like top runners is with Orange Asphalt, but it used to be you would just go for the gem on the first pass, and if you missed it, you just went for the one cycle, and it didn't really make a difference. I don't know if that's changed recently. He missed a crate? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's generally how it is with Orange Asphalt. I don't think there's any real significant time difference between doing the one cycle or not doing it. Orange Asphalt's the one motorcycle level where the time trial is actually pretty lenient.
Stu's going into Mad Bombers here. So this is the second plane level, and this one's a lot more tough because the enemies just, one, they deal more damage to you, and then
yeah, they shred through your health, and they're a lot more relentless. And
yeah, and you've got to fight these planes with terrible hitbox like engines.
Yeah, they move in the parts where you can actually hit them, or their propellers, which is way smaller than like the entire blimp. But also the route that Stu is taking here is very particular. It is set up for the fastest possible cycle you can get in this level. Is really cool, but it's also very risky because you break the last health crate in this level pretty early on. So you have to do a lot of the level just without the ability to heal yourself.
Yeah, one thing you see him doing is barrel rolling. That can give you a little bit of iframes, so that when you're getting shot, you're not taking damage. I don't know if we touched on that with the first plane level, but more relevant here by a long shot. Again, just kind of adjusting down early to get himself on like the correct plane to get these planes. The hitboxes for those are even a little bit deceptive. It just adds to the madness that is this level.
I feel obligated to ask, what do you think about the music in Mad Bombers?
Mad Bombers, it's the is it the snare drum one?
Yes.
Not bad. Not bad from what I remember.
I'll take
I'm having
that.
trouble playing it in my head, but yeah.
Yeah, I am a very unashamed lover of the Mad Bombers music, and everybody thinks I'm an idiot.
Really?
Except for Ted. No, Ted agrees with me. Ted thinks the music's awesome.
You know, definitely. I don't think I would lean that way if I were to lean. So.
I'm a sucker for some marching snare. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You're basically at war with this game, so it's
Yeah,
fitting.
it fits. It
You can
perfectly
see
encapsulates the
Claxy.
Crash speedrun experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Claxy over here is doing the color gem route during the crystal pass, the first pass, and he's not going to go for the one cycle.
Yeah,
I
which is
imagine
very
Hypno's going
fair.
to do the same, or did the
Because
same.
again, this is one of the tougher one cycles. It is the hardest one outside of Tomb Time. And I would say not doing this one, I think, is like 45 seconds slower. But again, like definitely, if you're not comfortable with it, it's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
So Stu's going through the second pass of Mad Bombers, while Potty is about halfway through the first pass of it.
And of note, they will make use of there's a handbrake you can use for the planes. There's one in motorcycle levels as well, but sometimes you want to slow down a little bit to be able to line up or make the cycle that you've got work. So a little mix of everything getting utilized.
Definitely comes up in Mad Bombers. I don't think it comes up too much in Bye Bye Blimps. Then it comes up a little bit in Rings of Power as well, which we'll see at the very end of the run. Then in the motorcycle levels, you use it in Road Crash and Orange Asphalt, just make some tight turns. And I think there's one spot in Area 51 as well.
You can do it while boosting too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. So Hypno's going through the time trial of Bug Light now, and considering the fact that he didn't reset the cycle, I'm assuming he's already gotten the gems. So he's just doing this normally, which again is very valid.
You can see Potty just had to go into the Cortex fight because he collected all the crystals. We're not going to do it right now because we need to unlock the secret ending, and we don't want to sit through the first pass. You know, we can avoid it, and we can. So you enter, leave, and you go back.
This game is very convenient in that if the first time you beat Cortex is after you have collected everything, the game will give you the 100% ending. So we do not have to fight him twice, thankfully.
And a routing thing, Cortex does eat your masks if you enter with masks. So it's irrelevant here because we're doing plain levels, which already eat your masks. So we've routed to account for that.
Yeah, that's part of why Mad Bombers is generally saved for the last level in the warp room. It's either that or Orange Asphalt usually. I think Potty still has a slight lead here.
You can see Stu, he had to slow down for those two ramps. If you have max speed, I can't remember if you always will always will just clip through those boxes and not get them, or if there's a chance you can't. But if I remember,
most of the time you go over them.
Slows down even, so.
Fun fact, you can also go so slow that you go under them.
I didn't know that.
I did that in my my run at ESA winter. I tried to slow down to hit them, and I went so slow that I went under the second one.
That's never happened before, moment, huh?
Yeah.
Good and proper.
So Bonnie got a 116 in the Mad Bombers time trial there. That's a really good time. I anything that's like a 120 or faster, I would consider pretty good.
Yeah, you often end up around that like 115 time mark if you don't end up with like a sub 110.
So Potty is entering Warp 6, so he has 3 levels to do here. Rings of Power, Ski Crazed, and yeah, something like that. So the first one he's going to do is Rings of Power, just because in this warp room, you always get spat out of the level on the far left, and Rings of Power is on the far right, so it just makes sense to do this level first. But this level, I honestly think, is one of the coolest ones in the game. It's a race level, but in a plane, and you just, every time you spin through the ring, you just get this gigantic speed boost. It's just so fun.
Sound effects too.
Yeah.
Of note, there are 2 different types of speed you can get from the ring, depending on when you spin. So purple is the fastest, and then you can get like a greenish yellow, which isn't quite as fast.
Yeah, you get a yellow one if you just don't spin at the right time, or if you just don't spin at all. And You might see them slow down for some of these like later rings. Nope, Potty's just going ham. This is why he's top 2 in this game, because he just ran right through it.
Spinning, you kind of get a bigger hitbox. It's slightly generous, so you can kind of do risky looking things like that.
You also have to be careful is that I think if you pass through the last ring before and like one of the crates is falling but hasn't broken yet, I think you don't get it. But Potty just made sure to manually break every crate there. But yeah, as you can see, Potty got spat on the left side of the warp room, so it just makes sense to open with Rings of Power. And then he's going into Area 51, which means he's an absolute Giga Chad and ending with Ski Craze, which I could never do.
We didn't touch too much on Area 51 when Hypno went through it.
Yeah.
But this is the 4th motorcycle level. It's hidden. It's in the dark, and it's actually kind of a cool aesthetic because you've got these UFOs you're racing, and they give you light and help you see what's coming up. So it's very cool in that. But we're speedrunners, so we have this memorized, and honestly, it's not as difficult as you may think. Maybe casually, but I'd still put Road Crash ahead of it.
Yeah, it's definitely like one cycling level, like you have to in the speedrun, definitely makes it a pretty difficult one, but it's also one of those levels that's really fun to learn and really, really cool once you get it down. So Stu's entering Rings of Power now.
One small thing with the boost pads as well. If you already are boosting and have your wheelie up, meaning you're going, as fast as possible. If you hit another boost pad, it's technically faster than not hitting the boost pad. You'll get a little bit of a boost. Nice hole skip there by Potty.
He's been doing a really good job of weaving through these UFOs as well.
They're all predictable, predictably spaced out, so depending on how you take the early ones, you can predict where everything is and what you need to cut. If you
ooh, that whole. So he's been going really fast with this, so I think he should still be fine even with that. But you can take this level pretty safe, but if something like that happens, that can just be like one cycle over. But no, he's got plenty of time. The one cycle here, or the gold relic here, I think is like 148.
And you'll hit this, and then it'll stop for pretty much the rest of it. It's going to take slightly, I think.
But it'll take like an extra half second, but no, he's good. He's got a 143 here.
Yeah.
Very strong Area 51 by Potty. Meanwhile, we have Klaxy going through Mad Bombers and Hypno going through Gone Tomorrow. But again, as a reminder, Hypno only has Rings of Power to do in Warp Room 6, so even though it looks like he's very far behind, it's not entirely the case. But yeah, Stu is going into Ski Craze now, and Potty is also going into Ski Craze, and he got the button glitch, so he doesn't have to worry about anything in this level.
That's great.
Yeah, so
second relevant button glitch there.
Yeah, so Potty has an extra 1 minute to work with in this time trial because the Area 51 gold is like 148, 149 compared to Ski Craze 50-50. So Potty's he's living the good life right now. Stu's gotta be a bit more worried. But yeah, we saw this level when Hypno did it. But yeah, this is it's a very straightforward level, but it is one that leaves very little room for error. You can very quickly bleed time if you miss anything here. I think that button glitch kind of seals this one for Potty, honestly, because Ski Craze would have been the last like major point for Stu to catch up. But unless Potty just takes a death here, which I would say is not very likely, I don't see him failing this. And then all that's left after this is Cortex, which again, I don't see Potty really failing that either. That is a very unfortunate crate to miss. Not the worst one you can miss in this level, but again, every mistake adds up fast in this level.
Yeah, we'll see here shortly, but there's going to be an extra gem we're going to get as a result of getting all gold or better relics. It's kind of a unique gem. There's really no other gem like it. You kind of interact, quote unquote, interact with Coco.
Yeah, it spawns next to her once you have 30 gold relics or higher. You can have like platinums as well.
Very out of place, but it's kind of nice. It's cool.
Yeah, nice reward for going fast in the time trials. That, again, that's a bit of an unfortunate crate to miss, but Stu's got enough leeway where he should be fine. These last ramps can be very terrifying. Just missing a crate on it is unfortunate. Yeah, the waves are not being friendly to Stu here. They're just launching him a bit higher than you want to go.
Got plenty.
But again, he's got plenty of time, so he should be good on this. Even without the
potty.
Even without the
full level.
Yeah. Stu still has to do Area 51, but yeah. Even without that button glitch, Potty had an extremely clean ski crazed. So. Yep, so you can see here on Potty's screen, no buttons are spawning. That means he has every gem. So the only thing he can do now is enter Cortex. So he's going to get this last gem from Coco.
Very important. You cannot forget this.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget, to be fair.
Spawns right there. He grabs it. There's fireworks. And Potty is entering the final boss. So as long as he doesn't die here, this seems like pretty in the bag for him.
This final boss, you cannot take any masks in for obvious reasons. Your Aku is fighting his brother. So it's an auto scroller pretty much. You can slightly speed up the mid parts coming up here after Cortex is knocked down.
The way Cortex throws these mines is random, but it's nothing too debilitating. And then what Aku and Uka do in every phase is different. So in the first phase, they have a laser beam war. The second phase, they're just spinning at each other. They follow a set pattern, so you can go around them. And then the third phase that'll come up after this is that they will spin around each other. They'll go to a certain part in the arena, which is conveniently always where Crash is, and then they'll just spin around and make an explosion. You just have to get out of the way before that happens.
A little bit of unfortunate mine placement there for Potty, and Cortex got bounced back, which is comical, but doesn't lead to too much.
It's most comical when you get bounced into a mine. Yeah, so as you there, they're just going into that spot, and then just you bait them into a specific spot, and then you just walk away from them.
Cool little manipulation for the final one. You do it right there, and it'll blow up some of the mines that he's gonna throw.
I actually didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And that is time for Potty, and he is our winner with a finish time of 2:02:35. Well, on the race time, GG. On his time, he had like a 2:02, like 2x or something. Very good. So he had the one major hiccup with the road crash one cycle, but then made up for it with the button glitch in Tomb Time, the button glitch in Ski Crazed, and just clean movement throughout. And then he pulled ahead when Stu had the failure in the Tomb Time one cycle, which again, unfortunate, but that's just how volatile this run is. One mistake can swing it in the favor of someone else. Still a very good performance from both of them. Stu's gonna be coming up on Cortex now. Yeah, a 2:02 resetless is a really, really good time for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. For a 2-hour category, being a few minutes off is very solid.
Definitely. We have Klaxi going through Rings of Power right now, so he should be close to finishing up. He'll have this and then Ski Crazed in Area 51. Hypno has just Mad Bombers and Rings of Power left. It'll actually be interesting to see how this pans out.
Yeah.
I think Klaxi and Hypno are actually pretty close to each other because Hypno has to do Mad Bombers twice, so they both essentially have 3 levels left. I think Klaxi might have a slight lead here. Yep, Stu is just going through the final boss. And looking at the race time, it doesn't look like anybody else participating in the race has finished yet.
It seems to be still going, so no quits.
Yeah, there's no forfeits, which is great. Love to see that.
Bounce back for Cortex for Stu.
Body in an ad break, robbing us of the credits.
And notably, the credits, you just hear the music. You don't hear them fighting over the mask. So the sound effects being off.
So Hypno's gonna do the thing where he enters and exits Cortex. He has 69 lives, nice. And then he's gonna do the second pass of Mad Bombers and then Rings of Power, which both are relatively quick, so he might still be pretty close with Klaxi because Area 51's kind of a long level, and Ski Craze is pretty long as well. It's honestly really hard to tell at the moment as to who is in the lead between the two.
Stu finishing.
Yep, Stu finishing with a 2:05.15 on the race time. Very good as well. That is also a very strong resetless time.
Again, it's 2 minutes off his PB as well, so.
Yeah. Actually struggling with this crate here. Ski Craze looking a little rough, but it should still be doable for him. Ooh, that's a bit of an unfortunate damage because he had to weave around for that last crate. So he got both those crates, that's good. That ramp can be very tough to hit both crates on.
You've got 4, technically, arguably 3 options when you go off of ramps for tricks. You can do a forward nosedive to like kill some of your height, a backwards flip, and then you can roll to the sides.
So Hypno looks like he's about to finish up Mad Bombers.
Getting bopped like that and it's annoying.
So he's finishing up Mad Bombers, which means he just has Rings of Power next, and then Klaxi has Area 51, which is the longer of the two. So this might actually be a slight lead for Hypno.
Yeah. I like how we get the freeze frame of cute little baby Cortex. For,
yeah. Yep, so they're entering their last levels at the same time, but Rings of Power is a much quicker level than Area 51. It's like half the length, so I would say this is definitely a lead for Hypno.
For sure.
Yeah, that was the thing, because Hypno did Ski Craze in Area 51 so early. It looked like he was just constantly behind the rest, when in reality he had less levels left to work with. You know?
I'm not sure about the other races, but I would still imagine this is going to be 3 and 4 right here, unless Noi popped off. But I heard he had a little bit of a hiccup early, so
looks like Noi is still in Future Frenzy actually. So yeah, there's been looks like he's been having it rough actually.
No, clean. We're level 30, so he's on his way.
Check on some other runners. We have Katsu in in Orange Asphalt right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think these are going to be 3 and 4. I'm seeing
It'll be interesting.
Joey's also in area for Orange Asphalt. We got Fly Swooper in Mad Bombers.
Be interesting to see how this shakes out because Noi was the points leader for the entire SPRASH league, and then I think it was Hypno. Klaxi wasn't too far behind. Noi, Hypno, ZL, and then Klaxi. So Hypno could eclipse Noi, and Klaxi could eclipse ZL, depending on how they finish.
Looks like there's a lot of runners in the Orange Asphalt Mad Bombers section. So we might be seeing a large slew of finishes coming up soon. But yeah. I do think Hypno and Klaxi will be the next two.
Yeah, Klaxi really not far behind at all.
Yeah. It looks like both of them will be finishing fairly close to their PBs as well, because Hypno has a 209, and it looks like this will probably be like a high 210 or a low 211. Then Klaxi's PB is a 211.03, and he's looking to get like a low or a high 211 or a low 212. So very strong performance by all of these runners, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we saw some costly mistakes, but that's just the nature of this game. It's just gonna happen.
That's always gonna happen with Crash 3, especially. And Hypno finishes with a 2:10.54 on the race time. That is only a little over a minute behind his PB, so very strong performance on his part. I think he got a 2:10 earlier today during his stream when he was practicing, so very consistent. Consistency is like synonymous with Hypnoshark at this point. He is always just on his game constantly. Yeah, Klaxi should be finishing up very soon here as well.
One more phase to go.
And Klaxi, he finished on the race time. I think we might have some delay, but he said 2:12.06.
The GG then.
There he is. GG's to everyone. Very good race.
Very nice, yeah.